Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Baseline Show.
Yes. This will be in office hours this week, just because of the holiday weekend in the US. Lots of people are away on an extended vacation. But we'll just keep this one short and sweet. What's going on with everyone here in the baseline world or surrounding it? Are you learning about anything new or reading about any new trends online or anything cool going on?
I think there's supposed to be like a cage fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, that's not really baseline adjacent, but it was so interesting to me that I thought I'd bring it up. Start out on a high note. Anybody hear about that? No?
I haven't, but I feel like that would be a major headline.
Yeah, I heard about that. What are your thoughts on it, Keith?
I guess it's like the question is, and I was listening to this on like the Hard Fork podcast, and the question is like, how likely is it to happen? And then if it does happen, like what is the outcome going to be? I think I think that they were right that there is like a non-zero chance that it might happen, right? That because like Musk is just crazy enough to do something like that, right? And also Zuckerberg is, I guess, like an avid, what is he like? Krav Maga, jiu-jitsu. He's been practicing for a couple of years. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so read about it. Let us know your thoughts. Tell us what you think in the comment section.
Dana White is orchestrating it by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's weird because like Musk responds on Twitter, and then I guess Zuckerberg responds on like Instagram, like they can use each other's
Yeah.
platforms or whatever. And Facebook is coming out with some new competition to Twitter, I guess, supposed to be upcoming, which and there's actually some cool Web3, I guess Twitter like social communities. What was the one we heard of recently? I think it was Blue Sky, right?
Yeah, I
That
think
sounds
so.
familiar.
Has anybody actually like used any of those Web3 social media?
We took a look at
substitutes?
Society at Consensus. You remember? They had a pretty cool looking platform. I didn't
It actually
really
was.
tinker with it on my own, but the demo we got was, yeah, it looked pretty convincing.
Yeah, it actually was really cool. Almost even more interactive than a lot of Web 2 stuff, right? And then you could, it was real, it was like worlds within worlds type stuff, right? Couldn't you could create like,
Yeah, it was like it had like a section of it was like kind of designed like Discord, where you had your own like communities within a community, and you can make like threads and voice channels and things like that.
could you also send tokens like over it? Couldn't you send like
Yeah.
NFTs, or didn't he like listed an, what did he do? It was really cool.
Yeah,
Like
he
I
like
was,
sent me an NFT or something that he like took our picture, right? He took like a selfie of us and then minted it, I think, in the app
yeah, I don't
to
know, it was
be
really
like the
glazed
profile
over
picture or something.
at that part because we had been there for like a long time, had seen everything, but
Yeah,
it was one of the cooler ones. So is there
memorable
any
for sure.
connection? Is there any like social media baseliney type stuff, right? Like I'm guessing at some point in a lot of these social media implementations that no matter how decentralized they are, there's probably still some centralized components, like in a lot of Web3 stuff, right? So is there some kind of application where we apply like the autonomous baseline ZK flow to at least like, I don't know, try to make those centralized parts more secure, or you know what I mean? Is there anything there? What do you guys think?
Gotta be, right?
Or am I just dreaming? Is this like baseline in games? The conversation last time is just trying to like punch a bunch of square pegs into like the circle holes or whatever.
Are you talking about synchronizing something between platforms and proving it using ZK like the baseline protocol does, or something different?
Yeah, I guess it's like my instinct is that when I think of those, not only like social media stuff, but anything Web3, and there always ends up being kind of like a, more the most centralized part of that application. And is there a way to like, well, the reason why they haven't decentralized that part, there's obviously some reason, right? Whether they're, I don't know, like monetizing, or there's just not like a great way to do it. Is there some kind of like baseline application where you don't want to fully decentralize that part for the obvious reasons, but you can at least like baseline it, make it more trusted, because then it's all under zero knowledge, and it's kind of like more an autonomous flow that's being checked against contracts. Like I was checking out I don't know, meta transactions the other day, trying to find like a good like template to do meta transactions, or gas station network, gelato, all that other stuff. Gelato seems promising, but kind of newish, I guess. I haven't really tried them out. But then there's Open Zeppelin Defender, right? I'm guessing from the little that I read in Defender, they're not really using like a relay contract, or maybe they are under the hood, but you have to deposit all your funds into like another wallet that they then control. So it's almost like more in a more decentralized fashion, right? That they control all the funds in the wallet, or they control the wallet. You have to put those funds in the wallet, and then maybe they use a relay contract under the hood, or whatever they're doing. So a lot of this is like, a lot of these things in Web3, but still have like that centralized component. Is would people feel like it's more trusted if that part has like a baseline component to it, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Forget everything.
No, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think if you can cryptographically prove anything, I think it's inherently more trustable. Just depends on what that thing you'd be proving is. I'm not quite sure what would be the thing to be proving between those applications, or like those pieces of infrastructure, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have, I mean, the proofs are good. I definitely agree. But like, let's say you trust, I don't know, whatever social media network or Defender or anything else, you're like, okay, well, give me those proofs, right? And you're like, all right, I can verify them, they're good. But still along the way, like at some point, if they have control of all this stuff, right, you could send it to them, and I don't know, they just, you don't get a proof back, or you get a proof that they've constructed, and then you run it through a verifier that they've constructed, and it's like, you want to be sure what you're verifying, or that even you are verifying, you're still giving them the control of all those tokens, etc. Is it not only the proofs, but like the kind of like autonomous flow that nobody has control, which that even has its own problems by itself, right? Because it's like, how do you trust the flow, right? Because unless you're looking under the hood at the proofs and the flows and everything, but that just starts to kind of pull at the branch of all tech, I guess, right? Like, how do you trust anything?
Maybe for the audience, you could explain what you mean by autonomous flow. What are the steps in the autonomous flow? You described some of it, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, so like one of the things like the advantages come about from baseline is a kind of like on a high level, a connection between the different entities in the BPI, or even like through interop, the multiple BPIs. And if we look at all the examples we've talked about, whether they're banks, purchase orders, everything, that if we can get kind of the flow from one state to the next state to be done automatically in kind of like an autonomous fashion, where, all right, if I submit all this data and it runs through the proofs correctly, and they're checking like that all this things matches based on some master service agreement that's been like codified into smart contract, does this all check out, then it just automatically proceeds to the next step. I know we've talked about this a lot, kind of, off and on a video of like, what constitutes one step in the flow, like do you still need somebody on the other side to do like a manual click? Like in a purchase order, it's more complicated, I guess. We talked a lot in the sessions that you were running, right, Mark, about you did the full outflow with DIDs and everything of like that purchase order. And it's like, okay, well, if we send it over here, an order for whatever wood or something, and they don't actually have it in stock, but how do they signify that? We're always updating the catalog. But if we could somehow get it so that the bulk of the flow is just fully kind of like automatic based on these properties, right? Then that's what I'm talking about with autonomous.
Yeah. It just requires such careful construction, in my opinion, from what I know. Even saying that we're jumping to entire systems being proven and verified and automatically advanced is maybe that talk is even too advanced at this point, with where the baseline protocol is at. Not to say anything bad about the protocol. It's not necessarily even a bad thing. It's just it's very cutting edge, I would say, this entire idea of autonomy, like we're saying here.
Yeah, I was hoping Ryan would jump on. I think last time we talked, we were talking about getting just a session for them to go through, like, oh, how do they deal with more like general ZK proofs, right? Rather than having to construct the custom circuit, like per step, per flow, and all that other good stuff. So I was hoping you'd jump on and give us kind of like a rundown, but maybe we'll have to do that, I don't know, in some kind of upcoming, maybe not next week, the week after, or whenever we have time, really. That would be cool to see. I think that's one of the main worries when people think about baseline, or honestly, it's one of the consistent questions I've always got across the board ever since like when we first started and Amsterdam up until now, is kind of how do you start, how do you, there's like a couple steps in the beginning before everything is set up, constructing the MSA, coming to the agreement, making sure everything's like encoded correctly so that we can get to that kind of autonomous flow, right? Which is probably one of like the most notoriously under addressed aspects of baseline. So I think it'd be nice if if we had people come in, and even like Ryan, and show us like how do they address that, right?
Yeah,
maybe there's something there. I don't know. With a social media, gaming's kind of harder though, right? I don't know. I think the problem with a lot of these systems is it's just like the Web2 flow is so nice, and it's so nice to be in control of things, like games or the social media, and to be kind of like the super admin god, that when a lot of these companies delve over into Web3 and baseline, they're still trying to kind of maintain the grasp or hold of power they have from those centralized systems, right? They're still trying to maintain that, but like in a Web3 way. And it's kind of like a weird clash, that maybe there needs to be kind of like a more of a paradigm shift in their minds and how they maintain control. And maybe that's through, that trusted like autonomous flow possibly. That's all I got.
I mean, across the board, I guess I would say ZK-ML is the only real intersection with other areas of technology with ZK that has the highest level of viability, just proving the models that these algorithms are trained on.
Yeah, that's even more interesting. Also on the Hard Fork podcast and on other stuff, I've been hearing things about like the data that's being generated by the AIs right now, especially as people are using them more to create text. how it's becoming like the next generation of data that's input for other AIs, right? And that supposedly, or the theory is that the more that the data is generated by AIs becomes the input for further AIs, the more that supposedly this system will kind of crumble within itself, right? It's like they call it something like the AI cannibalization or the AI eating itself. They kept referring to it as, and I think that's, I mean, it's pretty interesting. And that they talked about, well, all of these data sets, all the stuff that like GPT was trained on, like previous to like 2022, 2021, that those are kind of golden, right? Because they're more so untouched by AI output. Like inevitably there's a certain percentage of that is AI output of 5-10%, for example. But then as these things become more prolific, like that data set that's used to train, if it's including post 2021 data, then it's a larger percentage is kind of this AI output. What is the Mechanical Turk? I think they were talking about, where you can do like these micro tasks, like post these images, or I knew Yoav has to know about it. He's all into like Fiverr, anything where you can do micro tasks for money. And the more that's generated by AI, the more, again, it's corrupting the sets. So there's this big push for, we need a tool to identify if something is generated by AI or not. And a lot of schools have been using these tools, but it's just unclear like how reliable they are in identifying like the AI generated content, right?
I've heard they're very unreliable.
Exactly, yeah. But that's the thing, it's like, it's hard to tell, right? When you're consuming like these large, go ahead.
I've taken code that was like generated by ChatGPT, and then I opened a new session and asked it like, is this your code, and just copy pasted it, and it's like, no, I've never seen this before in my life. So it's like, it's clearly still struggling to keep up.
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure if those, I haven't used any of the tools, but so I'm guessing, I don't know what the tools are based on in identifying them, right? But also maybe that's just GPT's, that's its most predicted response, right? Is that if you give it code, it's going to be like, no.
Yeah, it could be.
I saw some article where some guy ran one of those tools on like old things that were, originally created not by AI, like the Declaration of Independence, and it was like 90% AI generated. So I don't know how those tools really work. I have no clue.
Maybe it could be right. Who knows?
Oh no, let's go down this
maybe
conspiracy theory rabbit hole. Yeah,
I like it.
That's not where I was going with it. I was just saying that the tool's probably broken.
Is that like an indication of the simulation? Everything's AI.
Oh, fascinating.
I don't know. I have a hard time getting into the simulation talk.
You just started a whole like subreddit and like conspiracy theory just with this right here.
I'm in for it.
I think you guys are doing it, not me.
Feed in all of our founding fathers documents into it. Let's see what percentage hit we get.
Was Thomas Jefferson an AI?
All model 3.5 generated.
Yeah, was it the May version, or was it the 3.5?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
which is the version
it's like 2048 tokens, or was it 4096 tokens capability, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the paid version, right? The subscription one. Yeah,
the subscription one is actually already 4, right? But on 4 you can get like up to 32,000 odd tokens. So sorry, it's like a token is like it's like a word, or
right.
Yeah. Like 1.5 words or something, right?
Well, it's a semantic construct. It's a non-divisible semantic construct, which could be a word.
But I love to hear when I'm trying to figure out how much I can get done.
It can also be like 1.5 words though, like those semantic constructs. It's a little odd how they're created or what they're made up of.
Yeah, you can include like a comma, or you know, a period or a semicolon and stuff like that to it, right? And then there are, you know, because of grammar, certain grammar constructions must be, you know, must go together.
Mm. Do you see any intersection between baseline and social media, Andreas?
So I think I think the very concept of content creation is going to be questioned, and derivation of content from existing content, and probably so, right? Because it's going to be really problematic otherwise, right? Because there's nothing can be trusted, right? There's no root of trust anymore. If you basically have a capability to infinitely create content that looks like it comes from a human being, but it's not, right? I mean, beyond just like bots, right? But it's like content that is indistinguishable from created from a human. That becomes really problematic, and therefore you then you have to associate identity with that. But you need to, as soon as you do that, then you're in the realm of data privacy, right? If you can link every content back to an individual, right? If it's an individual human, then now you have to do, you know, employ data privacy. Obviously, then you're getting the question is like, okay, so if you're giving AI bots instances their own identity, right? What does that make them? Right? What happens when the model is updated? Does it change the identity, or is it still the same? Right? There's a whole bunch of like questions, right? What's the right of an AI bot? Does an AI bot have a right to data privacy, or the owner of an AI bot, more precisely, the operator? Right? So an organization, is it an individual? Does it extend? Do privacy rights extend to bots if they're operated by individuals versus organizations? There's a whole bunch of questions that are suddenly becoming relevant once you're saying digital content must be traceable to its origin in a verifiable way that is also privacy preserving, right? And that's where, you know, that's where baseline comes in, right? Right? You're
Sounds like a
basically
yes to me.
right? Basically, you're synchronizing state, right, with multiple parties, right? Because now you're accepting state. Right. That's the basic pattern. And you know, the very first thing is email. The easiest one to do.
So what you're saying is if we accelerate like AI generated content, then baseline becomes more prevalent, right? More necessary. Yeah.
The pattern, yeah, it's like how. So just one example, right? The which is highly relevant. So the Trump tape, right, where he showed whatever some you know, it's like top secret map to his campaign manager, right? The only way that that is admissible, right? You can say, because it's like if you didn't identify the second individual, and that second individual confirms that the recording is authentic, it would have been thrown out as inadmissible. Right? So you need to be able, but you can't do that at scale, right? You can do it. You have a piece of extremely high value content. You can do that sort of like forensic analysis, invest the time, get them on the record, under oath, blah blah, right? But authenticating that piece probably costs, $50,000, right? If you count up all the hours that the DOJ spent on that with the FBI, probably 100,000 or more, right? So that is a lot of money for a single piece of digital content.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it is totally it's totally okay, because that was such a high value piece of content. But if you're just going down a couple of levels, it's just not doable, right? To invest even $10 or $50 into imagine email, it's like costs you $1. That's not scalable, right? And that already, the value of $1 means there's already automation in there, a lot, right? Or maybe we do charge $1 per email, or we have to, or it's non-authentic, right? So it's like different business models that can come out of that. But it's that fundamental thing, can I prove that you actually sent me that email?
Yeah, that's interesting, especially with the kind of legal twist on things, whether evidence is admissible or inadmissible, because I mean, just depending on what courts and jurisdictions and consider certain things admissible or inadmissible has a tie into, what applications maybe this baseline or baseline type systems possibly have, right? And that, as we talked about, like AI content becoming more prolific, and that maybe that shifts the legal system to have different requirements for burdens of proving things that are valid for inadmissible, unadmissible, then that translates to us later on down the road, right?
I think it's highly relevant right now, right? I mean, it's like any messaging app, right? You have group chats, one-on-one chats, and they're being used as evidence. Take Hunter Biden case, WhatsApp message, right? Claim doesn't exist, fake, right? The burden of proof is on, is that actually not fake? Can you prove that it actually was sent from that account? Right? Was it at that time? Like, is there a digital provenance, right? Is there an audit trail?
So do you remember in that case what they did, what evidence they provided to prove it's not fake, or
Didn't
at all? They weren't required to.
No, it was a screenshot.
Okay, so Photoshop any screenshot together and you're good, right?
Yeah. So it becomes none of the stuff will be admissible going forward. I mean, any digital evidence without it's like that's not being corroborated either by people who are actively, right, or by a full digital audit trail that is rooted in a root of trust. Like if it's WhatsApp, then Meta servers, it's like you can no chance. And if it's Signal,
Yeah.
then Signal's going to tell you, it's like, I don't know. I don't see anything, right? It's like Signal has been subpoenaed by the FBI so often. They're just like, oh yeah, here's our user database. That's it. What do you mean? It's like, yeah, that's it. It's like, it's a user key, and that's it. We can't see anything.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's just like even if we go way back, like eyewitness testimony, especially of things like people with status and position before, right, were considered kind of without the need for a large like burden to prove its validity, right? But then it's obvious ways that we can like lie as human beings. But then the more we get like technology into our lives, the same thing is happening, right? As it becomes commonplace, then inevitably the question becomes like, oh, can we trust that thing? So are we just like kind of stuck in this loop? Like eventually, as these systems like, become ubiquitous throughout our lives, do we just lose the trust from them, or is there an endpoint where we have mathematics and cryptography that's the be all say all, right? This is valid or not.
There's no other way, right? It's like when it was just human beings, like lying didn't scale well, right? Now lying scales really well.
That should be a meme, just Andreas and like lying scales really well.
We can clip that up.
Yeah, but it's true, right? Lying scales well, right? So it's the now you need to the verification method to catch liars needs to scale as well, but that's harder to do, much harder, right? And it always boils down to root of trust.
Yeah, I mean, even at some point though, like the root of trust will be in those systems that are providing the like validity proof, right? So how do you have the inherent trust that the system is done correctly without going in yourself and verifying, right?
It's the same thing. It's like how do you know that it's like DNS servers are not censoring information, right, or delivering it or not altering it. Like
I don't know.
I don't
you
know.
don't. It's like, right. So you're not going in. You're not auditing. It's the same thing, right?
I mean, if I was in court, if something was on the line in court, I might be.
Yeah, how do you know someone didn't, attack your DNS server maliciously?
Yeah. So well, it depends on what kind of case it is, right? In the civil case, right? The burden of proof is a preponderance of evidence, right? But in felony cases, if it's criminal, right, then it's beyond. I think for felony cases, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Right, and that is preponderance of evidence is like you can triage things. It's like, but if beyond a reasonable doubt, it becomes extremely hard. So, and it's very easy to have evidence, this digital evidence, dismissed by saying it's like, look, I don't know. How can you prove that it hasn't been manipulated? How can you prove that it came from where the prosecution is like? So there's an enormous amount of effort that is done. So basically what you need to do, you need to build in cryptography into every single digital interaction.
Right.
That's why it's multi-party zero trust under zero knowledge, right?
Yeah, when you say it like that, to me, instinctively, it feels like just such a heavy overhead on everything now, though, right? I mean, necessary in the future and even now, but still, just feels that way.
Well, if you don't, then again, you have no way of being able to cross-check and validate anything. Right? Because you must assume that your environment is 100% adversarial. Right? It's fully trustless. Right? Because lying scales now. Exponentially scales. Right? So
Yeah, like even in the case of social media, like opinion laundering, like if someone posts something on LinkedIn, then it makes its way over to Twitter. How can you cross-check across both those platforms that one opinion originated before the other, even without AI?
you need to.
And if you're doing it between every interaction, they would have to be highly customized cryptographic agreements too, right?
I mean, the most simple form is saying this piece of data was this digital content was created by this identity, and this identity is
True to
trusted.
trust.
Root of trust, right? Is this identity is a human being, is a U.S. citizen, is like doesn't have, it's like all kinds of characteristics that you can list out, and then based on those characteristics, you can then it increases the trust level, right? To has, it's like, oh, this individual has TSC SCI level clearance. Right? You might not know who that individual is, but if you can expose that, then you're like, oh, okay, like someone did some really serious background check on that individual, right? Like some serious digging into the background, right? Is like, so.
Which is why DIDs would be such an important piece of this, because you
That's
can
correct.
port those identities anywhere.
Right, now it's about porting, right? Now you can, I mean, it starts just with digital signatures over content where the keys are associated with the DID that's rooted in and then you have a verifiable credential that makes claims about that DID.
Right.
Right, and from a trust provider. And then, I mean, it's not that much. It's like you're adding a digital signature object to any email and a verifiable credential email, and then there's an API in your email client that does the whole, oh, okay, this is the DID, right? You have a DID, you resolve the DID. Oh, that has this key, it's like this is all the tech already exists for that to be built, right? To be tightly integrated into email clients, and you just need to have something like, I don't know, like a magic link or what have you not, like that does KYC and issues verifiable credentials, right? And then, right, or ID.me. Now, if they were to issue verifiable credentials, then with an agreed upon schema, it's super simple. All of this exists already, right? Right, and you could even have a you can use that. You don't even have to pull it into every email client. You can just have a plugin that is plays well with like Gmail or Outlook, and that allows you then to just dump the email in that and check it. It's like, yep, checkbox, no, right? And then you can if you're then get fancy, then you can go into content provenance. Right? So, was this right? You can then, because this is sort of like just point in time. But so if you have an email chain, right? Was any of the content that was insert that's in the chain, has it been altered? You don't know. Right? So then you need to express an email as a zero knowledge proof that you're embedding into that, and then you're creating, you're creating aggregate proofs. Right? So you have one proof in the end that verifies that yes, all the content that was added to that has not been altered. Right? In its simplest form, right? This zero knowledge proof could be just a is just a Merkle tree. Merkle, it's just a collection of Merkle proofs. So, it's that's sort of like, if you add if you add all of that together, then clients can reconstruct everything and check step by step, and then check, yep, that's fine, right? All of these proofs check out.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that basically you could baseline anything that you might need
You can
to
baseline
in the
anything.
future.
Well, yeah, why you must
No.
the key sentence is you must. If you want to have trust,
Okay.
you must baseline everything. You must
Be
baseline.
baseline. You've heard it here. There is
Yeah.
no alternative. Must baseline.
Yeah, if you're okay with if you accept the risk of not knowing where things are coming from, right? But that, then look at, look, if you now have disinformation, it's like this effectively disintermediates disinformation. Right? So social media platforms might then require, you want to post content, you have to provide a proof of origin, right? Which if the tooling is available, it's not a big deal, right? Everything is then built in. So, but this is all going to be driven by regulation.
Yeah, true. Regulate, and in some ways, if the regulation isn't there, it actually, some companies or individuals might come to the conclusion that it might be better for them to not have it, though, to avoid to be like Signal, right? Or else and just be like, oh well, we don't have it.
Well, they can do that. They can do that, right? You can still be Signal, yet still know the full provenance of everything. Right? It can still be privacy preserving, right? The only thing that you expose is the trust anchor, is the identity provider. Right? So now the interesting thing now becomes, if you're using, because now you need to give an identity to every bot, every AI bot, because you need to say is like, okay, I produce this content, right? So if I produce this content, a song, a file, right? It's like then I need to have the capability to provide to build those proofs, right? And the AI content, the AI needs to have the identity, right? So it needs to be stamped as this is an authenticated AI bot, right? So identities need to scale to the hundreds of billions,
Do you think it's going to
Right.
be one big company that has a master app that everybody goes to just register an ID and use them as like the
No.
client for generating proofs and stuff like that? How do you think it would
No.
play out?
No, because identity providers, because you have different jurisdictions, not every identity.
Maybe in
So
China.
Chinese identity provider is going to be really loved here in the US. Like they're going to go like, right?
Oh yeah, I
Is
guess I meant in the
is
scale
that
of the
fair?
US.
No, right? It's like, yeah, but even in the US, right? It's like it needs to be interoperable, right? Interoperability is key. You can't just like hence DITs and VC. Right, and so it's like, and so there and schemas, right? It's like you need to get agreements like schemas, right? The only reason why we have a passport is because of the 1954 Chicago Accord. If that didn't happen, it was, there were, before that it were only bilateral agreements between countries.
Hmm.
Right? The Chicago Accord created the trust interoperability. Right? This is a passport, and if it's issued by that country, it's like, I know what the passport looked like. I know what all the fields are. I know what they mean, right? And then I can use that as my my credential, verifiable credential, right? That I can check. Oh yeah, it's that. Oh, and then I can check. Yes, it was issued by an entity that I trust, right? So the first global verifiable credential was the passport that was created with I think it was 54 Chicago UN. So that's what you need, but fully digitally, and that's going to be what's going to be interesting, and it's going to be driven by catastrophic events.
Yeah, as most like paradigm shifts are, right? That's what we need. We need a good catastrophic event.
Yeah, it's like what, who said that? Was it Rahm Emanuel said, like, never, it's like what was that? He said never waste the opportunity of a good crisis, or never waste a good crisis to make change, or something like that. It was, came out of the Great Recession, like 2008 to the 2008. I think he said that. So anyway, I think I think that from a baseline point of view, that it should be like primary focus, and also
Creating catastrophe. Oh no.
No. It's like to avoid these things, you basically, baseline is a must, because you need to be able to introduce digital provenance.
Yeah.
Right? Under zero knowledge. Right? Because of all the privacy, because of the regulatory requirements.
Maybe there's some branding there. Avoid catastrophe, baseline. Or maybe we can hammer down more on like the possibility of like imminent catastrophe, or what that would be, right? Because you're right, absolutely. Just know everybody becomes complacent, and then something happens and they're like, oh crap, we need to get on this, right? What they're gonna be like, what Andreas was saying was true this whole time.
Imagine you had done you had gotten regulation right on social media, right? That whole catastrophe of like disinformation, whether it's about the pandemic or what have you not, right? It's like it would have at least made it significantly harder for serial liars to gain prominence.
Right. And we've even seen kind of a decrease in what a lot of those platforms were doing to kind of curb the spread of misinformation now, right? Versus what it was like 1 or 2 years ago, right?
Right. Under the free speech doctrine, right? It's like, and we just saw, last week, the Supreme Court take a very hard line on
Right. Yeah.
on free speech.
The
right?
web designer in Colorado, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very narrow case, but it's
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope, right? Because you're moving from a paradigm of protected classes are absolutely protected to protected classes are sometimes not protected
Mhm.
because another right is deemed higher, right? I mean, you can argue about that all day long, but
Oh yeah.
that slippery slope just means that it opens up the avenue for malfeasance. I mean, look at the that case, right? The 303 case is the email that was sent to the web designer that said, it's like, oh, hey, look, I got a request, from a same-sex couple, and I ignored it. Is like, that was fake, right? The individual who's like, I never sent that. I've been happily married to a woman for 15 years, right? So it's that again, there was no, but there was a central piece to actually move it to the Supreme Court,
Mhm.
right? As there was because they used that to say there was actual damage done because of that, right? Or Colorado could have inflicted damage, right? So
Yeah, they
that
probably wouldn't have heard a case on just pure theory without any actual actions or evidence inside it, right? Because
yeah, I don't know whether
Supreme Court.
they filed the case not before that. I think they filed the case before harm was done, right? Because of it's a technical question of standing, right? Do you have standing to sue? Are you an injured? You only have standing to sue if you're an injured party,
Mhm.
right? And they sued before because it was like, oh, it's injured because she didn't start her business because this particular business because she was afraid she would be harmed. That was the argument. So in any event, again, if lower courts had known that this would have been fake, they would have, probably thrown out the case, right?
Mhm.
And then to get a case readmitted after it has been thrown out on technical grounds for standing is a much higher hurdle. So anyway, so if you just take the most recent court cases here in the US, but you can go anywhere, it becomes more and more important to be baseline, right?
Nice tie in there. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's like, what's that saying? The truth will set you free. Baseline.
Put that on a mug.
I think that's a good closer, huh? The truth will set you free. Baseline.
Yeah, I like your ramp up to it where you had to like think about it for a second. What do we say again? The truth will set you free. The moment of hesitation sells it for me. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. All right.
All right. Well, we
I
made it
think
to
we
the
have
top
to
of
end
the
it there,
hour.
right?
I think we can wrap it up on that note. I think we should tweet out the video of the show with a byline. The truth will set you free. Baseline. In
Sounds good to
in the
me.
age of generative AI, the truth will set you free only when you baseline.
Yeah, let's use AI to make that tweet though and everything. Though. Let's make sure.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
everything's
totally,
AI generated.
Like, we need to
This
create a
whole live stream
baseline
is AI generated.
baseline bot. Yeah, exactly. It's
Just gonna
all
slip that
like
in there.
5 individual AI chatbots, just like
Yeah, really good
Fine.
deep fakes.
with really good deep fakes. You know, in 5 years, 10 years, totally.
Makes sense.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Yeah. Great discussion. We'll see everyone on the baseline show next week where we will have a guest. We will be hosting Performix. So check out their site and the type of work they do, and we'll learn more about it next week. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And
very much.
Thank
remember,
you.
the
Yeah.
truth will set you free.
You free.
Baseline.